Okay, we're going to get started. So, good morning. My name is Ross Hook, and I look after sales for AutoRABIT in Asia Pacific. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be discussing our thoughts on Salesforce release and test management and how we can help you become a Salesforce release automation superstar. If you have any questions, please submit them to the Q&A section below, and we'll take some time to go through those at the end of the session. First, we're going to hear from my colleague Will, one of our DevOps specialists here at AutoRABIT, followed by Vic, test specialist for ACCELQ. So I'll hand over to Will to get us started.
All right, thank you. So welcome everyone. Let's start by talking about some of the issues that can occur without the automation. So simple mistakes and user error can have costly and wide-ranging effects on the bottom line as well as regulatory compliance within Salesforce. When there's a large amount of code and configuration to analyze and integrate, it takes a long time to review this when performed manually. And these repetitive manual checks are not just taking your team a long time, they're taking that time away from things that really matter. Labor-intensive tasks that actually need to be performed by skilled individuals. And we want to give these individuals the room and the bandwidth they need to produce quality applications and updates. And not only is the process slowing down these teams, but any slip in these manual review processes can mean that the issues are found much later than intended. For example, if an issue is missed in development and deployed into production, the worst case is the customer finding these issues and taking the time of your success managers, support, etc., as it works its way back through the process to get to the development or admin team where it can be fixed, reviewed, and pushed. So we need to address these vulnerabilities, configuration issues, and bugs before they become a problem in production and can lead to the exposure of sensitive data, frustration, or even downtime. Securing applications during the development process reduces risk and cost while at the same time accelerating of the pace of deployment. But how do we do that? With automated release management and a set of tools to help us. Now, mistakes are going to happen, and multi-developer teams are particularly prone to these mistakes. With overrides and conflicting structures are common when multiple environments are being integrated. But continuous integration and static code analysis work to spot these errors as soon as possible. Now, automating these processes with DevOps tools can also contribute to shorter periods between planning a new update and releasing it. So these large labor-intensive quality checks and tests that would previously occupy all your developers and release managers can simply be automated and completed without the failures. These intentional practices and powerful automated tools decrease the wasted team member time and contribute to the higher overall returns for each project. And when these tools are implemented, the returns will be seen in every project moving forward. So that means the returns will grow exponentially over time. Automated release management provides a set of tactics and tools that will be useful in every DevOps project, which can be improved over time. Standardizing your release strategy allows your team members to become comfortable with the process and know what to expect. They're able to focus more on the tasks instead of the surrounding processes to get the project moving forward. Now, as I mentioned, mistakes can still happen. And alongside these testing and review steps, and a backup of your Salesforce environment also saves your team huge amounts of time if they need to return your system to operations. But all in all, the automated release management process supports consistent results because it offers the ability to accurately repeat methods and processes over and over. It's difficult to achieve this kind of consistency with larger development teams. However, the pre-established quality assurance checkpoints and testing will be able to bring everything together in a uniform way. So what we're going to go through today is the importance of high quality code, some continuous testing to enable DevOps, the benefits of automated platforms, some best practices, and some essential release automation tools and their place in this process. Now, firstly, the importance of high quality code. And this is something that I've worked very closely with over the last few years. Now, high quality code is a must while developing in any language for any platform. But static code analysis is not as much of a given when it comes to Salesforce development, not as much of a household name. Now, the majority of people in the Salesforce environments get by with some free security scans, maybe check marks directly from your orgs, etc. But the problem with these scans is that they're not providing feedback quickly and not providing visibility in the right places. The other processes we've seen a lot revolve around manually reviewing developer sandboxes or pull requests, which, as I mentioned before, can be very time consuming. So what we want to do is move towards a more automated process. Now, we've talked about the cost of these processes, manual processes, but what about the other benefits? So automated scans of your code using a dedicated tool can weed out more than just glaring configuration errors, vulnerabilities, and possible bugs. Salesforce development is very different now to what it was 3 years ago. And technical debt has definitely started building in these older orgs as these new languages are introduced into the domain of what is a Salesforce language. So technical debt comes in a lot of forms, such as duplications, unused code, commented out code, high complexity. They can all lead to confusion and more wasted time when it comes to developing in these environments. So visibility on these issues is really the key. And we need the visibility in 2 places. So one, as soon as possible. So this is known as a push left, which is a push of the focus on these issues towards the development end of the process. So if visibility can be given to the developers in the IDE, great. If the automated review kicks off on a pull request or merge request, fantastic. And if you can do this at the same time, it's even better. This kind of feedback gives the developer more confidence in the code they're pushing and can act as a great educational tool for more junior developers as well. It will also act as a gate for these issues when we're enforcing our standards, which I'll talk about a bit later. Now, the second place is in your production environment. So making a scan of this environment and reviewing it can help root out any issues that have gone unnoticed for some time. So this can help any refactoring efforts as well as logging existing issues and separate the brand new issues as well. So when you start to implement and get visibility on these practices, best practices, it doesn't only prevent issues from happening. However, it is very good at that. It also increases your development velocity. Because when you standardize the way your developers write code, you're standardizing the way they look at the code they're developing. And for a developer, jumping into a class to make some changes can sound pretty simple, but can quickly turn into 30 minutes sitting there deciphering someone else's logic, styling, lack of commenting, etc., before getting down to business. So cleaner code not only secures your organization, makes it more functional, it also prevents time wasted spent deciphering code and allows your team to develop faster and cleaner. Now I'm going to hand over to Vic now to give us a bit of a rundown of continuous testing.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about continuous testing. So what is continuous testing? Continuous testing is the process of executing automated tests as part of your software delivery pipeline to obtain immediate feedback on the business risks associated with a software release candidate. So that's what is continuous testing, but why? Why do we do continuous testing? Because it allows the organizations to receive fast and continuous feedback throughout the development process. And in doing so, it gives them valuable insight to help minimize those business risks and the impacts on the end users. It also helps organizations to improve their quality while reducing costs, allowing them to kind of move away from the traditional handoffs and the rigid development test cycles currently in place. Ultimately, it achieves faster time to market, allowing you to test earlier, test throughout the pipeline, instead of at the very end of the development process. So there's some challenges to achieving continuous test automation. First of all, the inability to shift left. Organizations have trouble testing in the development process and unable to bring testing closer to the design and development phases at the beginning of the development cycle. Next, the next two challenges are application dependencies and test environment instability. Those two kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes the functionality or the UI elements are not available, or the test environment is so unstable or consistently down that the test cannot even begin. So you cannot achieve what you're looking for on the continuous testing. Also, you might have resource constraints. Teams might be siloed, the key members might be unavailable, so then you have a bottleneck in your development process. Lastly, you might have, there's multiple Salesforce releases a year, right? There's 3 releases, there's spring, summer, and winter. And then the constant upgrades creates technical debt, causing organizations to spend more time fixing the existing framework or the scripts instead of actually working on the new ones. So we talked a little bit about the challenges that organizations have faced. Now let's dive into a few key components an organization should establish on their automation platform in order to be successful in their continuous testing. One of the most important components to the test automation platform is having the ability for full stack automation. The platform needs to be able to do front-end testing for the UI, as well as back-end testing as the API to create an end-to-end flow and or scenario that you're testing. Having the right integrations and traceability is also important. It helps connect the testing process to the rest of the development team. You bring in business analysts, you bring in developers, or even business users inside your testing process. Having an integration between your automation platform and your ALM and your CI tools are crucial. Another key part of the platform is reusability and modularity of the automation. You don't want to reinvent the wheel every single time a new functionality or a new update comes out. You want to build a good foundation at the very beginning of your test automation journey, and you want to reuse that across the board, so it doesn't have to be every time a new release comes out, you're scrambling to deal with the changes that are in the release. And lastly, Salesforce alignment is vital. The platform should be able to keep up with the constant release schedule. Like we said earlier, there's 3 every single year, and then so your platform needs to be able to keep up with those changes every single year as they kind of come out. So now we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of having automated platforms. So after successfully establishing a continuous platform, you can obtain the following benefits. You can write faster and, more importantly, reusable automation, which allows the organization to lower the overhead and their maintenance costs and reduce the efforts required to maintain that framework. By introducing the test process earlier and aligning with the CI and CD tool pipeline, allows the organizations to develop higher quality releases, giving visibility to the testing progress throughout the entire process. And finally, if this is done correctly, you can break up the traditional silos and remove those resource constraints by allowing everybody on the team to be part of the process itself. And here I'll give it back to Will to talk about more benefits of the automated platforms.
Thanks, Vic. So just like Vic mentioned, the repeated process of an automated platform allows us to maintain a high level of consistency. So when the standards and processes that you hold your projects to are managed from a central point. This central automated pipeline, they become much more accessible and visible. Now, whether it's static code analysis or test automation, this visibility also extends to pain points in the processes. So the bottlenecks in these deployment strategies or testing strategies become very visible with automation and allow you to review and streamline these processes over time. Which brings me to how we can best use that to reinforce some of the best practices of DevOps. For example, we can use these types of DevOps metrics to find ways to further optimize your use of automation. So for example, deployment size. We can track how many stories, feature requests, and bug fixes are being deployed. And these counts could vary wildly depending on the size of your work items. You can also track how many story points or days worth of development work are being deployed to help you with maintaining a development velocity. The deployment frequency, so you can track how often you do the deployments. Reducing the size of these deployments makes it easier to test and release. So the goal is to do more smaller deployments as often as possible. Deployment time, we can track how long it takes to do an actual deployment. And tracking this can help identify potential problems. Quick deployments, as I mentioned, are a lot easier. Now, the pass percentage for automated tests. This should be used to increase velocity. It's good to know how often changes are causing the test to break. And of course, error rates. So error rates within your application are not only an indicator of quality problems, but also performance and uptime related issues. So getting visibility on all of these metrics can be used to adjust your strategy and your use of automation in the future as well. I'll hand back to Vic.
So some continuous test best practices. First one is you want test-driven development, right? So testing should become part of your development process itself. It should be integral. It needs to be part of the definition of done, and it's not something that's added on or good to have at the very end of the entire process. Next, you want to enable in-sprint automation. You want to bring the developers closer to the testers and decouple from that application dependency that we mentioned earlier. So then the tests are ready to run as soon as the related functionality is implemented. That means that if the developer is working on something right now, your testers can then start creating those test cases or those test scenarios at the same time as those developers are writing their code. So as soon as that code is done, as soon as that code gets committed and that functionality becomes available, you can begin your testing process. Next, you want to enable the CI/CD process by determining the right tests at the right stages of the pipeline. The testing needs to become a part of the CI/CD pipeline through multiple integrations from the front and the back. And then lastly, you want to have risk-based test planning. You want to determine what the business risks associated with each automated tests are, and you want to change from asking the question of why is testing taking so long to what are all the risks associated with this test and what happens if the testing is not complete.
Thank you. Yeah, the risk-based testing planning and traceability is really interesting. I think having visibility on those and scoping those different areas of your deployments really comes into all of these points, right? The test automation, the static code analysis to really get an idea of where the pain points are and focus there. But at the moment, let's talk about some of the essential Salesforce tools. This is a set of tools, types of tools that can help you with all of the processes that we've been talking about today. So firstly, static code analysis. So static code analysis, as we went through before, can help find all kinds of issues, from glaring vulnerability to configuration to functional issues, even crossing over into some of the testing. For example, finding tests which don't have assertions, which is a very common thing in Salesforce testing, to create coverage without actually doing any hard work. So what it can help us with is providing visibility on these issues early in the early stages of development, to make sure they're fixed before they move further and create problems for our teams using the tool, the platform, or problems for our customers. Now, continuously integrating these the static code analysis as well as the automated releases is very, very important for this whole process and maintaining that velocity. So, for example, when the developer writes the code and configuration or makes the configuration changes, what we want to see is our automated release management and our static code analysis and test automation integrated into our CI/CD pipeline. So as soon as the developer is writing code or making configuration changes, we want to see that CI/CD tool doing most of our heavy lifting. So we want it to package the change. We want it to validate the package on a higher sandbox, run these unit tests and our static code analysis to determine automatically if it passes certain levels of quality that we need to see in these changes. Now, if that does not pass, we want to fail that and we want to notify people. We want to pass that straight back to the developer to maintain that push left approach and get that information and visibility where it needs to be. But if that's all okay, we want to push forward. We want to allow the developer to push it and let them know that it is okay. Let the tools know that it's okay, and let the release managers know that it's okay from a central location. So at AutoRABIT, what we have is an end-to-end kind of one-stop shop for this functionality. So what we're looking at is a release management tool that can help you with your deployments, with your developers' commits. We have CodeScan to integrate into that and check these commits, check your deployments. We also have Vault to make sure that our data and our metadata is correctly backed up. And that allows us to have shorter lead time, higher quality code, operational excellence, as well as a fallback when it comes to our backups. And you know, from recent happenings, we all know that Salesforce is not going to be up 100% of the time. So this can save you a lot of pain in the future. And what this does is it leads to faster innovation. And that's not just a tagline. It creates the time for your developers to spend working on the things that matter. And that's business logic, that's actual new features, new updates to your processes, so that we can get faster and faster and see that improvement over time, rather than being hung up on manual processes, bits and pieces. And I'll give this back to Vic for a moment to tell you a bit about how the automated testing fits into this part as well.
So we at ACCELQ is a codeless end-to-end full test automation platform that covers the entire technology stack. We automate web applications, native mobile apps, desktops, APIs, as well as manual testing and test management. We enable in-sprint automation by integrating with Agile and ALM tools such as Jira and ADO, as well as downstream to the CI/CD tools as well as talked about, such as Jenkins, GitLab, and GitHub. And ACCELQ is the only continuous testing and test automation platform that is available on the Salesforce App Exchange. So ultimately, if continuous testing is the goal, then ACCELQ is definitely the right platform to help achieve it.
Vic, Will, thank you so much for your time. That was fantastic. Probably helps for me to be talking whilst I'm off mute. Really appreciated the sessions that you ran us through then. Just a reminder to everyone, if you've got any questions, there's the Q&A tab at the bottom. I can see that we've already got a couple that have popped through. I'm joined here with Shriram from ACCELQ. We hope to be able to cover off on any of the questions that you've got. Actually, Shriram, there's already one in here that I can see, and I think that it's in your space, so I'll read it out for you. The question is, pain point of the industry has always been keeping up with the Salesforce releases, 3 a year. Could you elaborate more on how a tool like ACCELQ could help with smooth upgrades? Shriram, can you field that question for us?
Hey, Ross, thanks for that. Hey, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the session so far. And it's a great question, right? So that's what's on most people's minds when you talk about Salesforce automation. Yeah. So at ACCELQ, we have deep-rooted Salesforce partnerships. We are both an ISV and a BST partner. And that BST partnership, which is business scenario testing program alliance partnership, allows us early access to Salesforce releases at least a month before it is released to end customers, right? So this allows us to make any tweaks to the platform as need be to ensure that when the end customers make that upgrades, the ACCELQ scripts that they had written for the previous release are still compatible and workable with very, very minimal, maintenance required.
Okay. Yep. All right. Perfect. Thank you for that. Actually, I've got another one here from you, so don't give up the mic just yet. The next question, I think, is also in your space. Does ACCELQ seamlessly support all Salesforce technology stack? So it's about the languages like Classic, Lightning, Lightning Web components as well. Shriram, could you take that one for us?
Absolutely, right. So anything and everything which is native to Salesforce, and also other customizations that are built on top of them, right? So we can, such as your Encino, Velocity, Glovia, etc., right? Any kind of applications and packaged apps that are built in and around Salesforce ecosystem, all of them can be automated seamlessly in the same codeless fashion. And can avail our, the AI-based functionalities and self-healing to ensure, efficient, effective automation.
Right. Thank you very much. Will, I've got one here that I hope you can help with. So the question is, how can we use a code quality tool in conjunction with a custom pipeline?
Yeah, good question. Well, a lot of tools integrate in different ways, but what everything has is kind of that main flag. In CodeScan, it's a quality gate, and we supply the quality gate to pipelines using an SFDX plugin. So say your pipeline is in a GitHub Actions or Bitbucket pipelines or Jenkins. Our SFDX plugin is what we usually implement there, and that can provide all the information you need to that pipeline.
Okay, thank you very much. Shriram, there's another one that's come through on the testing side of things. This one's actually related to managed packages. So the question reads, how easy is it for ACCELQ to adopt continuous testing with various Salesforce managed packages like Encino and Velocity are the examples that they give?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, right, so we are kind of agnostic to anything that's built on top of Salesforce. Yep. So we can natively support all of those technologies. Some of those are partners themselves, right? For example, nCino is our partner. They use ACCELQ internally for their test automation needs, and we are building an nCino live universe in conjunction with them, which will be kind of pre-built assets for nCino, not only for Salesforce, right? So nCino on top of Salesforce, which any kind of nCino customers can avail as part of their nCino implementation, right?
Oh, perfect.
And to just go one step further, so we can automate the entire stack as well, right? So typically your currently, if you look at your overall business scenarios, business processes, they hardly ever stop begin and end with Salesforce, right? There are other API integrations, there are other databases, and other components involved in a typical end-to-end process. If I take an example, say you go to ACCELQ.com and you request a free trial, right? We use Salesforce for our CRM, so we'll end up getting a record created there. But what we also do is after the trial gets approved, we have to fire APIs, we have to set up our product accordingly. You'll get an automated email with your credentials. So we ourselves will need to test that end-to-end flow, which is starting from feeding in some random information as a free trial request on our website, verify Salesforce record creation, simulate user actions in Salesforce, then verify the emails being sent to that email address, verify that that link is working, takes us to your trial account, be able to log in, and you are seeing that it is all set up just as you want it, right? So now that kind of, the end-to-end capability as well, we support out of the box.
Perfect. No, thank you for that. Will, there's one that's just come through that's for you, I think. In fact, it's actually looks like it's two questions, but they seem to be related. So two parts. Can a developer be automatically notified of any code issues? And the second part to the question is, can the release process be gated such that these issues, and I'm assuming if they pop up, can be stopped from going any further? Will, I was wondering if you could help us out with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, they all tie in, and actually that ties into the last question as well, which was how to put this into a custom pipeline. Now, if you don't have release tools, notifications can come from a couple different places. CodeScan, for example, has some notifications that can come right out of the platform, but your developers can also get notified in places like your Bitbucket or GitHub, or from AutoRABIT or Capado, etc., when these things fail. So, and that comes to the gating. So there are, not just in CodeScan, but in all static analysis tools, there are certain measurements that allow you to set a threshold for a pass or a fail of the project. And in a pipeline, that's what we'd be monitoring. So your pipeline would run at certain points, run the static code analysis, and then alert you either through the platform of that static code analysis tool, or the release tool, or the version control, if that scan had passed or failed. But it all comes back to the visibility, implementing it in your specific process, and finding where that visibility is best, best provided. But yeah, good question.
Okay. All right. No, thank you for that. And look, one more has come through, and this one's actually back to you, Shriram. So it's actually with relation to Jira. We currently use Jira for test management and defect logging. Is two-way integration possible? This user doesn't want to be moving away from Jira. So any plugin available?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a Jira plugin and also Azure DevOps plugin, right? So which establishes bi-directional traceability both ways between your requirements and defects and the test cases in ACCELQ. Right, okay. So they'll allow you to get views like per story level, what are the linked test cases? Let's say I have 4 test cases and 3 of them I had the last execution 2 days ago, 3 of them passed, 1 failed. Right, so it'll give you information right up to the detail. I can, set up different Jira boards or Azure filters as well, and it will show you all the stories and defects that are matching those filters and their related traceability. Right, all of them are hyperlinked, obviously, so you can click them. It'll take you to the detailed results or the relevant test cases in ACCELQ, and you can do the same thing from ACCELQ as well, where you can look up the statuses of your Jira stories. You can create dynamic test suites based on whatever stories are in the sprint. Right, let's say this sprint you got 5 stories. You can go and create a dynamic test suite and say, hey, any test cases that are linked to these stories is going to be part of this sprint suite. Now, first day I have 1 test case. Tomorrow I have 2. By the end of the sprint, I may have 20. This is all going to be dynamically updated without you ever having to manually keep updating your test suite.
Okay.
Right. And one last thing about the defects process as well. We can automatically create defects in Jira and Azure and even Rally. And with the click of a button from ACCELQ, you will have the detailed log and the error screenshot, and it will create it directly into those tools.
Perfect. Look, thank you very much for that. Look, actually, that's all the questions that have come through. Unless one pops up in the next couple of seconds, I think we might be able to sort of call the session to a close. Again, Vic, Will, thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate it. Shriram, thank you very much for being able to field those testing questions that have come through from the audience as well. To everyone out there, thank you so much for your time today. Of course, any follow-up questions that you might have, please don't hesitate to drop us a line. We'd love to have a chat with you and look forward to catching up with you in our next webinar. Good day for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.